Okay, we're doing it. We're live. This is another in the series of testing live streaming off the phone. And this is what my office looks like in the daylight. I haven't added any light to the scene, but I do have some lights handy if I want to add some light. This is a good look for me, right? Yeah, so just gonna be editing photos. If anyone shows up, we'll chat, I guess. I don't really know what to talk about, but I could talk all frickin' day, I'm sure, if I really had to. Yeah, so today we are editing photos from a place in town called DoSpace. And if we get far enough, we'll be editing photos from a place in town called the Bemis Center, which is a arts residency warehouse kind of thing. And they had an open studio, which was kind of neat this last weekend. And then at DoSpace, they partnered with a local organization called Fontenau Forest, which is a nature center. It does cool things. Taking my shoes off. I don't know why I didn't do that before I started streaming. Probably because I didn't expect anybody to watch this. Anyway, on with the show. So, got photos. I need to figure out a way to rig this camera so that you can actually see what I'm doing. Or I need to get onto something like OBS where I can just show my screen. But then I think I've been thinking about setting up my ATEM so I can have like a camera and then I could do picture in picture or something like that. But that also feels like it would take up a lot of desk real estate. So I'm not 100% sure if I'm gonna do that. I probably will eventually. Because if you want to get monetized on YouTube, you need 4,000 watch hours. And some advice I was given was that streaming can help. So I'm gonna be doing the streaming thing and seeing if anything comes of it. Not sure if anything will come of it, but it's neat that you can stream off the cell phone now, because it used to be if you were streaming, you had to stream off a computer unless you had 1,000 subscribers. But apparently they did away with that, or maybe my account's old enough or something. I don't know, because this YouTube account is several years old because I started it, I think, in 2020. I don't know if it was like a response to the pandemic or it's just something like, for a long time I've been like, oh, I should make YouTube stuff. And like I kind of like half-ass it, but I never really put a true effort into it. I think what ended up happening was like I have ideas, and then I'd be like, yeah, that's a great idea, and then I would do that, and then like the ADHD brain would be like, oh, I've got a better idea, and then I would do that instead, and then I'd have an idea and it would get like popular quickly, and I was like, I don't want to be known for that one thing. I just call that Larry the Cable Guy syndrome, because I had a Pitchman character that was just basically the idea was that like it's a pitchman who's like so coked up that he doesn't wait for people to hire him. He just goes out and finds places, and he's just like, "Hey, Gary Bensonish here," and I made a couple commercials, and people really liked it. But then what happened was like all my friends were like, "What would Ben Simmons say about this?" And I'd be like, I don't know. And then like it got old to me really quickly, and I was like, fuck, if this was like a thing that I was like known for, and I had to go out like in public and like do, because at the time I was doing stand-up comedy, and I was like, if that was just like the thing I had to do every time I did stand-up comedy, like I would hate my life. Like it would be really unfun to be just this like, like I like the idea of being a pitchman, motivational speaker, like that's awesome, but like having to like Slurms McKenzie it did not seem like a fun time. So Slurms McKenzie, for you kids who don't know, is a reference to Futurama, which you should watch. It's coming back. I don't know how I feel about Futurama coming back because I liked the original series, and then it got canceled, and it came back, and they did like movies, which weren't. The ones I've watched, I don't know if I've seen them all, but the ones I've watched, I don't think were really. It didn't capture the original thing, and so then it got canceled again, and then it got renewed again, and those, I don't. I don't remember them super well, but I remember the ending being really good and being like, "That's an amazing ending." And now they're bringing it back, and I'm like, "Why? You ended it so well." And there's just this, like a lot of people complain, like, "Oh, Hollywood just doesn't have original ideas anymore," and it's like, really, it's because everyone's just so fucked that like we can't wrap our heads around like getting emotionally involved with new characters and new plot lines and ideas. So like it's kind of our fault that that's all Hollywood shows us, because all we do is watch The Office again and again and again and again and again and again and again, and we don't watch anything new. Although people say Euphoria is really good. I've been meaning to check that one out. And now that I think the second season is over, I feel like that's a good time to check something out, because you have 2 seasons, you can binge it. But then the problem is like you hit that wall and then you're like, fuck, I gotta wait with all the rest of you assholes. But my girlfriend hasn't seen The Sopranos, Breaking Bad, or Better Call Saul. So I'm like, those three right there, like if we watch like one episode a day, like we've got like the rest of the year covered. And it's been so long since I've seen The Sopranos, and I don't even know if I've seen all of The Sopranos. Like I know I haven't seen the ending, I've just heard about it. But I would like to go back and rewatch that. I think a couple years ago I rewatched the first season and I was like, this is great. And then I just like didn't have time/energy, because The Sopranos is a kind of show where like you have to like watch it. Like you can't. It's not like The Office where you can just put it on the background and then like tune in and be like, oh yeah, this is the one where Dwight does the thing. You're like, that was a good one. You have to actually pay attention. So, God, fuckers. How dare those 90s fuckers. The HBO making shows good shows you have to pay attention to, and you can't just like understand what's happening by tuning in every couple minutes while you stare at your phone and try to dissociate with how terrible the world is. Right? Anyway. Try new energy drinks. This one's a Rowdy. It doesn't taste as good, but it is keto approved. Been trying to the thing. So I have type 2 diabetes. I don't know if you're aware of that. I don't really talk about that much. I talk about it all the fucking time. And what you don't realize is like there's a lot of things that say 0 carbs, that say 0 sugar, but your body, like it doesn't tell your body. You're just like there's so many energy drinks that have artificial sweeteners that your body like, this is sugar, right? And you're like, no. And you're like, blood sugar. It just cranks up. I don't know if it's like the chemicals in it. I know like there's, so basically, if you don't know what type 2 diabetes is, essentially is 2 things happening at the same time. Is that your body is resistant to the insulin you're making. So essentially what's happening is you eat a lot of food, carbs, whatever, so your blood sugar is always high, so your insulin levels are always high, and they need to take that glucose, the sugar, the blood sugar, and they need to put it places. They need to put it into cells, and eventually your cells are like, fuck this, we're full. And they start rejecting the insulin, and so then your body has to start making more insulin. And that causes the second problem, which is the beta cells in your pancreas that make the insulin start to kind of like give up and weaken and die off and burn out. Burnout's the term I've heard the most, and the one I like, because that leads to the belief that you can fix the problem to some degree. And there's been studies that show there's a path to do it. It's just really difficult. Like if you're predisposed to have diabetes and like you push yourself there, you'll never become undiabetic, but you can go into remission by reducing your insulin resistance, by losing weight and getting all your blood work right, and then fasting so your beta cells have a chance to regain strength and kind of take a break. A lot of people have walked back their diabetes pretty far, which is great. I forget where I was going with this. Oh yeah, but so anyway, what happens when you drink like a lot of caffeine and a lot of stimulants, which you need if you have trouble focusing, because like for me, energy drinks are like low grade Ritalin, and if I don't drink energy drinks, then I have trouble like staying on a task. And so I could do coffee, but obviously whatever's in the energy drinks works a lot better. So what happens when you have like caffeine and other stimulants is that your insulin resistance goes up for a time period while the caffeine's in your system. It kind of blunts the insulin receptor, and at the same time it spikes your adrenaline gland, which dumps stored glucose into your body. So if you're fasting or on keto, caffeine good. If you have diabetes, caffeine not necessarily bad, but it's not ideal for a lot of the time. And so if you rely on the caffeine to get your shit done, it can make things harder. So finding caffeine sources that work for me and that taste good, like black coffee. I drink black coffee because like it's healthy. There's a lot of antioxidants in it, and if it's adding all this stuff to it, coffee, tea, very good. The problem is that people just add too much shit to it, which obviously I was very guilty of, because if you go to Starbucks and you look at like the carbs and the sugars, like the sugars in a Starbucks coffee drink can be like 100 grams of sugar. Well, maybe it's 100 grams of carbs, but it's all the same for your blood sugar. Like it's really bad. And then on top of that, like the caffeine is blunting your insulin reception and causing spikes, just natural spikes in your blood sugar. So like drinking Starbucks coffee, if you're worried about diabetes, is like the worst thing you can do for yourself. But black coffee's fine. It just like doesn't taste good. And that's a problem, is that like I've been having health problems from complications with diabetes. And so I can't go do things. Like I feel like I have a thing in my foot, which makes it trying to stay off my feet till it heals, but because of the diabetes, it takes longer to heal, and then it keeps like flaring up, and so I have to go back to the doctor and get scalpeled again and again and again, which, I mean, we're on the third round this time, and it looks like it's finally healing. But I can't play hockey, and so I can't, there's like all I'm doing anymore is just working, like, because all the cool stuff that you want to go out and do, it's a lot of standing, like, not to be like, oh, ableists, like, not being able to, like, stand for long periods really limits your options for shit to do, especially if you don't like hanging out at bars. And, you know, drinking is also not good for the diabetes, so it's kind of just like, all right, well, like, we go to concerts, and like, well, like, don't really want to stand for, like, bands I don't really know, and I've been to so many concerts over the years, it's just kind of like a bummer, man. So, like, I feel like my life has just been kind of beige. Like, that's the best way I can describe it. It's just like I'm working and I'm doing jobs. Like, doing event photos is like my favorite thing to do. And I feel like I'm really good at it. And so the last 2 years have been difficult because there hasn't been a lot of event photography work. So now I've got event photos. I'm like, yes! I have been editing some videos. So I did some work for a nonprofit, and it's partly my fault that going into it, I was like, I could do this. And then, like, now that I've done it, I was like, nope, I don't have the skill set required for that specific type of job. Is that because they wanted like 40 deliverables, right? And the problem with that is that so often I'm used to working, especially with video stuff, working on a crew where there's a director, there's a producer, and these are skill sets that I've done before on like 1 or 2 videos, but then like if I have to do 40 videos and I only have so much time to capture everything I need for the 40 videos, and I rely on the client, who obviously has never made a video, it's not their fault, they don't know what kind of stuff I need. And so I was just kind of going along with their plan. I'm like, yeah, that sounds right, because it did sound good. Until we get to the point where we're editing, and because these are videos for an orphanage, we can't show the kids. So we have to get actors, and we only have the actors for these narrow windows. And all the B-roll that the people had suggested ended up being mostly useless. Like, we spent an inordinate amount of time on the kids, like, because the idea was that, like, oh, it's like a family sort of environment. It's not Orphan Annie, you know. It's like they have these homes, and it's like 5-10 kids to a home, and they do chores together, and they cook together and all this stuff. And so it's like a family unit, and it's like, cool, you learn how to operate as a family, which is it's a cool idea. And so we spent all this time shooting footage of them doing stuff around the house, which, you know, is a thing. And on the face of it, like, that seems like a good idea, because that's kind of like, oh, that's because the point of the video was to show, because it's an orphanage. It's, think of like Boys Town, but it's not Boys Town, if that makes it to make sense. You know, you send your troubled kid there, and they can get inpatient therapy and all this other good stuff, good mental health, and, you know, if your kids have been taken away, this might be a place they go. And so the problem was almost all the videos we did focused more on that therapy aspect. And so having kids doing dishes and cooking, which took, like, we cooked a meal in real fucking time, which was a terrible idea, because it's like, okay, we spent, like, we're feeding the kids because they're coming, you know, these are like high school kids who are like in a theater program, and they're coming to give their time, which, you know, bless them, they're not getting paid to come out here. I think they did get out of school early, which, you know, and then they got food, they got fed. And so it's like, yeah, you have to do that part of it. But then they're like doing chores around the house. Like, so the footage was not useful. What I needed was like one-on-one with a bunch of different therapists. Because then we also shot like a group therapy session. But then shortly after we shot that, the guy who was doing the group therapy quit or was fired or something. And they didn't want him in the video at all. So I was like, the only group therapy we have now is like the shots where you can't really see the main guy doing like the close-ups of hands and stuff, and you're like, it's hard to translate group therapy like that. So look, but these are things like I didn't consider. So it was a hard time, and what ended up happening was I made them like 5 main videos. I made them like 6 testimonials, and I think I made them like 24 social media videos before I was just like, I can't, that's all I got. Like, this is all I can harvest out of this. And the problem with that, so is that 5 + 6 + 24, that's not quite 40, but it's pretty close, because like it was more just like, we want 5 social media videos about this, and it's like, okay, I'll do my best. But then what ended up happening was, because so much of the B-roll was useless for these 36 videos or whatever it is, I ended up using the same B-roll shots. And it's like the same, like, I mean, I probably have like 30 good B-roll shots, and that just, like, it's so soul-crushing to like have to find 30 different tracks, especially when you're trying to find social media. So finding social media music is so fucking hard. Like, if you do music and you want to make a living at doing music, like, you can make your stuff and great and do whatever, but please, for the love of fucking God, make 15 to 60, 90 second little jingly songs in every genre. Like, especially like ambient post-rock stuff, like, you'd be helping out so many fucking people, because so much of that shit is garbage, even on like the good websites to get music from. And then so much of it, it's just, there's just not enough of it. So like the stuff that's good, there's like 3 or 4 songs, and you're like, fuck, okay, well, that sucks. So yeah, if you're looking for a blind spot and you want to work from home and do your own thing, like, get into making music, get a guitar, get like 9 reverb pedals, and just churn out 30-second ambient things. I think I'm gonna work into that. because I have guitar. Guitar. It's actually a bass. Because I like playing bass better. I played guitar for a long time. It's caught on the strap. Why are you caught? What the fuck? There it goes. There's a heater here. My girlfriend plugged it in. I don't need to unplug it. I like playing bass better than guitar. Probably because there's less strings. But also I just feel like it's easier to translate my ideas into the bass, even though I'm terrible and I haven't played it in a really long time. And I know the video says I'm going to be editing photos, so I probably should get back to work. But I do enjoy me some bass playing, and I think I might try to get back into it and just make those 30-second, make my own, make the stuff I want to see out in the world. And it's definitely a blind spot. It's definitely a problem. And it's definitely going to be something as more organizations want more social media. That's definitely going to come up a lot more than it used to. And so, like, if you don't want to keep seeing the same fucking, if you don't want to keep saying the same, 17 songs and social media and jingles, help us out and make something. Pick up a guitar and do your part to make social media videos slightly more interesting. For the love of God, if I have to hear one more ukulele and clapping video, like, I might actually throw up, because I heard so many of those. That's all there is in that 30-second category, is like whistling, ukulele, and clapping, and like, happy. And it's like, okay, this is about kids with mental health problems, so that doesn't work. It's not great. It's not wonderful. But now I'm doing event photos again. Events are starting to come back, kind of. It seems like they come and they get canceled, and they come, and they get canceled. Like, there's a couple, and they back down. COVID. I did some video work for UNMC recently, and we talked to their public health guy, and obviously I can't speak for him, but at the time he was thinking, he said it looked like things would kind of be starting to get back to normal here after the recent variants kind of wiped through everybody, and like the herd immunity had gone way up. And so it's like COVID has fewer people to rip into, the vaccination rates are higher, people are getting boosted. So just kind of like a lot of things working against COVID right now. So hopefully that's true. We can kind of get back to doing events, because that's where I feel like I have two really good skill sets. It's that I can do event photos really well, and I'm really good as a second person on video shoots, where if I can AC, or if I could be a grip or whatever, and I could just be like, what about this? Like, if I have time to like look around. But when it's me, especially if I'm like pre-editing, where like you're producing, editing, shooting, you're doing all your one-man banding, I think I get overwhelmed. And so I don't know if I need to like practice that sort of like putting myself in a scenario where I have plenty of time. And for that way, when there's times when I don't have the time, which is almost all of the time, I can be a little more focused. Like, everything with like lighting, camera angles, all that stuff is generally kind of autopilot of like, obviously this is gonna work the best. Camera here, light here, good. And I've been told I'm really good at interviewing, so I got that going for me. But like, it's like the B-roll shooting, I feel very frenetic, and I feel like I'm trying to do what I do with event photos and try to just get a lot of variety, and that tends to make me go too fast, and then like I miss obvious things, where if I'm doing photos I don't, because I think with photos it's very different. Photos is like, if you think about it from a hunting analogy, if you're doing photos, you're gathering things, you're walking around and you're being like, oh, there's some berries, like, let's get some of those. Whereas with video, it feels more, I don't know if this is just me, it feels more like I'm chasing something, especially like if I'm setting up talent. And so I don't know if it's just a situation where like when I'm doing photos, it's much more laid back because it's kind of just like shoot what happens. Whereas when I'm shooting video, it's like it feels very, we can't take up these people's time. Like I don't know why that happens so often, and it's not more relaxed. And it should be a mental shift there. And it's even weird is like when I'm assisting people, and they like take a second to think. I'm like, what are you thinking? We've got to keep going, because so often like someone's like, oh, we only have this person for like 10 minutes. And it's like, why the fuck is that ever the scenario? Because with event photos, it's just like, these people are here. And maybe that's also part of it, is that like the people in events are relaxed. They're in a relaxed state, and they could be themselves, and I'm just trying to capture authenticity. Whereas in video, every part of it is like not authentic, and so like the person is like, if I had two mugs, that's a reference from 30 Rock that I always bring up. If I had two mugs, yeah, it's just stiff, and it doesn't work as well. So I don't. It's one of those things. That's the things. That's the things that it is. It's one of those things. So yeah. I just want to get back to doing event photos. Like if I could make a living doing event photos, I would love that. But there's not enough work, and I'm not gonna say it doesn't pay well. It pays pretty good. It's just like there's only so many events in a week, and you can only realistically capture so many of them as like a business. You can only capture so many opportunities because there are other people and they're working hard to like make that paper. And yeah. So, but I have a couple events this month. I mean, I shot 2 this weekend, and I've got 2 more. And like as my health improves, I can kind of get back to I work at a church part-time, which is super awesome and chill because they're just kind of like, yeah, just kind of do whatever. Like we just need photos. Like for what? Like for everything. We just need photos for stuff. Like whatever you shoot, like we'll be able to use it. And so like that's great. And it's cool because it's like a cool church. Because if I had to work in front of those like really preachy, like Jesus is life churches, I don't think I could do it. But like our church is progressive, and we like women and science and gay people, like that's all good. It's like, okay, yes, thank you. Like, because if it was a gross church, I definitely would not still work there. Like the pay there is not great. It got better over the pandemic, which thanks to them, like they paid me to basically like, we're not having in-person services. Like we know like your job is pretty much just shooting photo and video for us, and we don't have any of that, but we're gonna still pay you. Like you come every week. I'm like, sweet. So I got paid to do nothing, which was awesome. But now we're back to the time where like I have actual work from the money, which is like, oh, God forbid I have to actually earn my money. But like, it's such a small, I think they realized that like they hired me when I was like brand new in the world. This is like 10 years. It's been 10 years. This summer will be 10 years of working at a church, which is so weird to think about. And so like they paid me, I think they were paying me like $12 an hour when I started. And like since then, it's just been kind of cost of living, like the 2-3%. So like, and then like in the last like, I don't know, like over the pandemic, I think they gave me like, they're like, yeah, we're not paying you enough. Like here's a $2 an hour bump. Because I think they realized that I was kind of just like a little burnt out on it. And I was like, the only reason I still come here is because I don't have anything better to do Sunday mornings. And then the pandemic definitely didn't help with that. And then I think they also just kind of started hiring more people because pandemic caused a lot of turnover. And then I think they were just looking at all the jobs. And then like the sound guys, we went through a couple sound guys. And I think then they were real cognizant of the fact that like, oh, there's this other guy that's been here for 10 years and he can do all this stuff and we're not paying him like anything. Like we probably should give him more money so he sticks around. And I was like, sweet. Because I was going to stick around anyway until I had something better to do, which is kind of still the plan. Like I really like the people there and I don't ever see just like wholesale quitting. Like I don't see any reason why that would ever happen. But like until I have something better to do, or if like this YouTube stuff takes off, and then it starts to become a thing of like I have all these opportunities to go do stuff out, on the weekends and travel and stuff, which I don't really like traveling, so there's that. Then I think I'd still work there, and I think that's my advice to like anybody who wants to get started doing photography or filmmaking or any of that stuff. Is you kind of just have to find like an anchor client, and so like churches are good because they need stuff constantly. Like a church always needs photo work, they always need video work. The problem is they can't always pay, which is, like if you're just getting started, like that could be fine because you can network a lot. That's one thing churches do very well, is you can network with a lot of people very quickly in the church, and they'll see your stuff and they'll like it, and they're like, oh, you're the person that takes the photos, which is a lot more obvious when you're 6'5" and you're just like hulking around with your cameras. But then, I've gotten jobs from it, which is great. And obviously I've gotten money. Like that's how I paid my rent. That $12 an hour, like 10 years ago, was how I was able to afford to move out of my parents' house, because it was like steady and consistent and I could count on it. And so when you have that, that helps so much. Having, even if it's like less than your worth, I think it's still worth doing. Like there's Nick, what's up? I am not 7 feet. I am 6 foot, 6'5", 6'6", somewhere in there. Nick, I'm talking about working at churches and why I think people should do it. Because I think, especially when you're getting started, having something is better than nothing. Nick said, hey. I addressed you, Nick. What's up, buddy? I'm editing photos from the Do Space. I'm guessing you're at work. Or are you at home? Are you working from home? If you find the right church and the people are nice, then it's a good fit. Which CCC is a good fit? Yeah, Countryside's a great fit. I've gone to some churches, like my girlfriend's parents' church is just so like, it's very mega churchy. He works from home for 3 days. That's awesome. Like, especially with gas prices going up. Like, I would not, all these people that are like, we're returning to the office. It's like, the fuck you are. You know how expensive gas is right now? Like, no one's coming back. I don't know what the fuck you're thinking. But yeah, like, so my girlfriend's parents' church is like real mega churchy, and it just feels gross every time I go there, because they're just like, oh, who's this? Like, they're, which I know that sounds like in the abstract, but it's, when I go to my church, the church I work at, everyone's like, who are you? Like, I'm genuinely interested. Whereas in the mega church, it's like, you feel, it's very like, hey, hun, like, join our pyramid scheme. And you're like, yeah, fuck. It's such a cult. Yeah, Nick's right. It's a bragging competition. And you know what's so right about that is, like, so often my girlfriend's parents want us to go to church with them because they want to, like, I don't, like, show, like, oh, we're the family unit. We go to church together. Like, we're better at church than you. It's like, what the fuck is that? Like, I don't want to go to your church. And what was also gross is that their church didn't wear masks. During the whole pandemic, they had like services and they're like, you don't need to wear a mask here. And I'm like, I'm pretty sure there's a law about that. But they're like, nah, we're church. What? Jesus doesn't care that who loves him the most. Yep. He loves everyone. That's the message that should happen. But the message that does happen is like, if you don't tie 15% of your income, then you're a piece of shit and you can fuck right off. Like, it's not, those churches, I don't know, man. Some of those churches, I just can't do it. Like, what? Give me the welcoming message. Like, make people feel accepted, not a gross way. 'Cause yeah, I don't know. Yeah, 25. That's the other problem with those churches. Is it's just like, it's been a pandemic, and they're just like, it's so important to donate. And then, like, they turn around and they're like, we got a capital campaign because we're planting churches. And you're like, what the fuck? Like, I get that if your goal with religion is that you want to save souls, that, you know, like, having another church is helpful. But, like, with so many of those people are just so deeply flawed, it's like maybe you should put more resources into like shoring up the fucked up people that are already in the building before you start, you know, doing that. What is my streaming setup right now? Let's talk about fun things. I'm streaming, this is just on my iPhone. So it used to be with YouTube that to stream off your phone, you had to have 1,000 subscribers, but I guess they did away with that. So now I'm playing with it a little bit. How does it sound? That's my big question. I know it doesn't look as good as it could. I'm looking at it right now. But I don't know how it sounds. I'm imagining it sounds okay. Because, I mean, it's just a phone, so you're just getting phone audio. But I've thought about, I was like, oh, I've got the ATEM. And then I was like, oh, but if I need it for a job, you know, but I'm like, well, I've used that thing like 4 times. Like, that was not a great purchase. So it's like, okay, well, I could set up, you know, like a little pocket camera, and then I could put an actual microphone in, and like that quality would be good. But this sounds fine. It doesn't take up any desk space, which my desk is already a fucking mess. So I don't need a big setup to like take up more room. When are we building a new PC? Well, I just sent the invoice to that one nonprofit that's gonna give me a bunch of money, and I'm trying to decide if I should use that money to buy a PC, or if I should use that money to invest slash pay off debt. Because it's like, I probably need a new computer, but I mean, this one still edits video just fine. Like, I'm not doing anything super advanced. So, but it also is going on 8 years. This is the 8th year I've had it. Which, that's a really good return on investment if you think about, like, how many hundreds of thousands of dollars this computer has edited. Like, this computer has chugged through probably like $500,000 worth of work. You know, at least. Which is pretty fucking cool. But you know, there's times when I like render super long videos where I'm like, man, I wish I had a better video card and this didn't take like an hour. And like, especially if I'm like, cause like I'm realizing that I really like the idea of like motion graphics, and every time I like dip my toe into it, it's just like overwhelming. Why would I get a truck? I do want a Honda Ridgeline. Those things are awesome. But right now, like buying a car seems like a really bad proposition because it just like it does not seem like something anyone should be doing. Because it's the only car that'll fit me. My Honda Element fits me just fine. But a Ridgeline, what's awesome about the Ridgelines is like even for me, there's like a foot of headroom, which is like bonkers in a car. And then what I really like about the Ridgelines, I like the old Ridgelines. The new Ridgelines look stupid, but the old Ridgelines, the bigger boxy ones, they have the truck bed, but then they have a trunk in the truck bed. So like you could put like a camera, and then you put all your grip shit on top of it. So like your stuff's like super safe, and then you put the topper. They have toppers, but they're hard to get. Oh, the cooler. The 2022, they're just like, I feel like they took everything that was good that I liked about the Ridgeline. Like, they don't have the trunk. I mean, they have a cooler, but it used to be like a big trunk. And then also the cab's like not nearly as big. Whereas like in the Gen 1 Ridgeline, I feel super comfortable sitting in the back, which means I could haul plenty of shit as far as like cameras or like a bike in the back, which is awesome because that's what my dad does. You can flip the seats up and then he sticks his bikes in. He doesn't have to take the wheels off or anything. Better than the second gen. First is good, the second is bad. Oh, I didn't know there was 3 gens. Is there a third? Honda Element or Honda Ridgeline? Honda Ridgeline Gen 3. future Gen 3 speculate when the Gen 3. Oh, this says in 21. Yeah, there's only 2 generations. It looks like there's the big one, the first generation, and the second one. The 2282, I'm calling the 3rd generation. It's probably that. So let's look at Honda Ridgeline 2022. Let's take a look at this. Boom, boom, boom. It's hard to tell if it looks less stupid. But like starting like, so Sport Black Edition. The Black Edition is the most expensive one, so I'm assuming that's the biggest one. Yeah, it's not as round looking. I do like this. Powertrain. But it's $45,000. So you get a bed extender for motorcycles, which seems cool. Bike attachment. Oh, that's neat. Frame mount, body side molding, crossbars. Hard cargo cover area, hood protector. Do they have oh, roof basket, that's neat. Why don't they have a topper for the back? Like they have hard covers. Oh, they have a bed tent for $374 because I'm never gonna go camping ever. How does it do with gas mileage? That's what I want to know. Oh, in-bed trunk, function package, function plus package. So they have an in-bed trunk, so they added that back. That's awesome. Yeah, it looks maybe a little bigger. But yeah, it would be, looking at this, $45,000 MSRP. 24 miles per gallon, that's better than the Element. The Element gets like 18. Or I think it says 18, which it probably gets even less than that. And with gas prices going up, that's not super cool. But at the same time, I don't drive that much. So, but the Element's starting, like the last time I went to the mechanic, like they just kept finding things wrong with it. And I kept being like, well, fix that too, I guess. And they're like, well, we pulled this off and then this is also broken. And like, I trust my mechanic, they're great people. I've been going to them for like 20 some years. And so when they tell me something needs to be fixed, it usually does actually need to be fixed. Because they're really good about being like, this probably should be fixed, but it's not gonna kill you. I'm like, oh great, let's not fix it. So last time I went to the mechanic, it was like $4,000 out the door, and it was like, well, not buying a new car anytime soon. Like I don't have the money for that, and my credit's not super great right now for, I don't know, dumb reasons. It was like a thing, like I had COVID and then I like missed a payment because I was just like COVID brain or whatever. And then that had like several cards that have like zero balance that I keep for emergencies. And I guess when I like missed the payment, they were like, uh-oh. And they were like, they lowered my limit. And then that caused this like cascade of all these cards to lower my limit. And my credit card dumped like 100 points like in 2 months. And I was like, what the fuck? Like, it was like 700, which isn't amazing, but like it's pretty good. And so it's like, I want to buy a house soon. So having a credit score get dumped down to like 600 is not good. So I got to figure out how to fix that. And I don't know if I like need to start being like asking them if I need to go. I think the first step would be like go to the people who I missed a payment on and be like, hey, I had COVID. And they'll be like, oh, sorry, we'll take that off. And that would probably go a long way. And then after that, just asking for rate increases or limit increases. And then that way I can build back up my debt to whatever. We can make me house. I've been seeing a lot of things on YouTube for tiny houses. And I'm like, I'm intrigued by the idea of having a tiny house. But at the same time, I'm a large human. So it's like I need a large tiny house. But I like the idea of having like a plot of land and then having a tiny house. And then having like buildings. So like it's a tiny house is the main structure, and it's got the living room, it's got the bedroom, it's got maybe 2 bathrooms. And then the next thing is like building a big, just like barn type building that can serve as like a workshop / gym. and then next would be like an office for me, and then next would be like an office for Ashley, and then next would be like the theater bunker or something, you know, and just kind of slowly build out the house. Plywood. Have you seen the prices on plywood right now? It's like $50 a sheet. Like it's gone. Jesse Atanasio, I don't know how to pronounce his name, which I probably should because I've been friends with him forever. But he posted a picture yesterday or the day before, was like the cost of plywood has gone up like 20%. And it's like, why did that? Oh, I got a package. My lights are here. I got new lights. I got some of those Nan lights. So I worked on a job for King of Kings for Tony Bonacci, who broke his leg, and he recommended me to them to fill in for him. And they had some Nan lights, and I'm like, oh, these are sweet. And so then so I have this, which is a Yongnuo 362, which is pretty cool. But the Nan lights I got the really tiny ones. They're 10 inches, just because I wanted to test them and like have some of my own. And then also I liked the idea of having two of the same, two, you know, so that way I could do some stuff with YouTube. Because right now I just kind of bounce this into a bounce board, and it like puts out enough light that you can kind of see how it's. But I want to play with some more lights, and then what I do often is I throw blue into the background. And so one thing I'm really interested in with the Nan light is they have it's called hue shift. And so it goes, you pick like start point, end point in the 360 degree HSL, and then it goes A to B. I don't know if it goes A to B, and then it must go back and forth. Because I don't know if it would just go A to B and then reset back to A, which doesn't seem like it would make sense. But that sounds really cool for like backgrounds. Just to add like just a little sprinkle of visual interest without being distracting. To just go from like blue to purple and back and just kind of shift. Really, if I could dial it in, that'd be awesome. And that's kind of what I'm hoping for. And then they also have a couple more effects, which I'm interested in. But then other than that, I mean, I have those Aperture MCs. I love those. And these just seem a little bigger. So the Nanlite Forza 500. I have not seen that. Let's go look at it. Forza 500. Okay, so that looks a lot like the Aperture, what do they call them? The big Aperture ones. I have one of them, the 300. I have like the 300X. So I'm guessing this is just a more powerful version of that for about the same price, which is kind of cool. With 500 watts. So I feel like with LED, the wattage thing, like is that the equivalent of like a 500 watt output? It's twice as bright as the 300. Well, wouldn't it need to be 600 to be twice as bright? But then there is the Aperture 600D just came out, and that's like $2,000. But I do like the Aperture stuff, and I think they're coming out with a 600X. I thought I saw, which is a bicolor one, which I'm more interested. I'm not buying a single color light ever again. It pulls 500 watts, so yeah, it should be twice as bright then, probably. But like a 600X could be cool. I think, who has one? I think Nate Gasway has one. It's super powerful, but it's huge. Like it's bigger than you think it is. Like you look at the pictures and you're like, oh, that's kind of like the 300. You're like, nope, it's way bigger. Which is cool, you know, like if you really want to like replicate daylight out a window, like that'll do it for you. And then I have seen, I think they're making a 1200 too, which is awesome to have that amount of output. Yeah, 1200. I think it's only in daylight right now. It's $3,000. That thing's probably massive though. Like I wonder what the equivalent of that is. Comparable to a 1600 watt HMI. That's crazy bright. Like Hat fell off. Yeah, but it's like, I look at that stuff and I'm like, that's awesome, but I don't know, like the way my career trajectory is going, I'm like, am I ever gonna use any of that stuff? Like the 300 is like overkill for a lot of jobs I already do, you know, and it's like, I want to get more. I feel like for me at this point, having more small lights is better because like the light panels, the Astros that I have, and then I have the 300. Having a second 300 might be nice because I have like some attachments that would be good, you know, to put a softbox and then put a Fresnel for a backlight, and like that would get you like most of what you need. And then the light panels could be fill and backlights, and then other than that, I feel like having these smaller lights that travel easy, like if I could have, like thinking about like what I need most of the time, I'm like this, like if I had like 4 of these would probably do like 80% of the work, and it would be just fine. And I feel like it's easier to take something like this and match the scene that exists and motivate the light than it is to have like a big light panel. Like, cause with a light panel, I mean, to rig it with a battery, you're talking $1,200. These are $150, and they have a battery built in. It doesn't last super long. You probably get 2 hours on it on a full charge. And so if you think about that, like $150, and you could have 6 of these, and it's like you could really motivate the light so much better, easier. The light would theoretically be softer. This thing kicks out really just super harsh light, which I'm kind of hoping the Nan light's better. But you know, you think about stuff like that, and especially like the Nan light and the Aputure MCs have magnets, so you could just stick them to a lot of things, and you could hide them in the shot so easy that I think like that's kind of the way my brain is interested. And also like you can, I don't know, with output how many more lights I would need. But I feel like if I had the same amount of space, filling it with Aputures would probably have more output than one light panel. I think. I don't know. I'd have to go look at that. Because you think about what one light panel, how much space that takes up. You're talking that's like 10 or 15 of those Aputures, which it's a similar price, oddly enough. And then, you know, you kind of fill in with some of these bigger sticks, and then you still have that stuff. You still have the light panels when you want it. So like, I think so much of what I do anymore is like so fast run and gun. We don't have time to set up a light. We don't have crew to carry the lights. Like, so having stick lights that walk with you, I think is really beneficial. And then especially as like LED technology is getting better, I feel like we're about to hit another plateau as far as output goes. If we're not already there, because I haven't seen anything that's like crazy interesting that isn't just like way bigger and way more expensive. Because I remember like when the first light panels came out, everyone was like, these are amazing. But then like, if you compare a light panel now to an Astra, you're like, what? How did people use that? Like, it's so low output, you know? Even the built-in battery are awesome. The downside with this is it has a proprietary, maybe it's not proprietary, but it plugs into the wall. What I like about the Nan light and the Aputure MCs is that they use USB-C, so you can power them on the go. So you just get like a bunch of little lipstick, you know, power banks, and you can kind of just tape them. What's cool about the Nan lights is, so the Nan lights have magnets on them, and then they ship with magnets. And so the idea is that if you want to like put a light on a wall, you gaff tape the magnets they give you to the wall, and then you stick the Nan light on it, which is pretty awesome. That's a guy that follows me on my ASMR channel. What's up? We're talking about lights. And so I think that's really, I'm really excited. They just got here, you know, and so part of me wants to like end the stream and be like, I gotta go look at my lights, because like they're at the apartment clubhouse, which is so far away. It's like a quarter mile. It's so far. But I really want to play with him. But then also, like, I'm like, I gotta get watch time on this channel. Podcasting next month. Oh yeah, you're gonna go back to editing. Well, it was good talking with you, Nick. Dude, we should do a podcast because I could talk all day. Ask my ASMR friend; he'll tell you that I fucking just ramble. I mean, I've been doing it right now for like an hour, and like you weren't even here for most of it. But good luck on your video editing. We need to go make wood sometime soon. That sounds gross, but you know what I meant. Nice. Thanks for watching, Nick. Boom, boom. Okay, if you're just joining us, all one of you just joined. We're editing photos from some jobs I did this weekend. Aw, thanks, buddy. Go Leafs, go. I've been rooting for the Capitals lately because I want Ovechkin to get the record. But a lot of people are really mad at him right now about the whole Russia thing. Well, thank you. But so the Ovechkin, here's the thing: is like he was like a Putin apologist for this longest time, and I don't know how much of that is like him actually like supporting Putin and the war, and how much of it is like Putin would probably like blackmail him and or hurt his family somehow if he didn't do it. And so like you could tell like he did an interview like after all that like the war came out and people were like Ovechkin needs to answer for his war crimes. Like he's a hockey player. Like he's got a picture with his president as his like avatar on Instagram, but you're like, okay, that's just like if you won the Super Bowl and you went to the White House and you had a picture with whoever the president was, whether or not you agree with the politics, like that's still like an accolade, like when did that stop becoming an accolade? And I know that kind of feels like apologizing for Putin, that he's a dickhead, and I think the whole war in Russia, I mean, obviously that's a huge mistake. But I mean, like, this guy, he's just a professional athlete. He's from Russia. He's got family in Russia. Yeah, and that's what, like, why are we getting so political with sports? Like, when have these guys ever been, like, bastions of, has there ever been a former professional athlete that went into politics afterwards? Like, I don't even know. I mean, Ronald Reagan was an actor. I know that much. Bush 2 played baseball, maybe? Is that a thing that I maybe heard about? Or did he own a baseball team? Something about that. But yeah, it's like the thing that bothers me the most, I think, is that there are current politicians that are like, Russia's they have a reason to do it. And you're like, no. But at the same time, you see these people mad at Ovechkin, who's Russian. And like, again, Russia's known for blackmailing people and punishing dissenters. Like, why aren't you mad at the politicians in America who have taken Russian money? Like, why is he a lightning rod for anything? Like, the guy's just good at hockey. And so like, if think about it, like if you didn't know anything about politics and someone like the president was like, hey, you want to come raise money for kids? You'd be like, yeah, okay, fuck, whatever. And then you'd like take a picture with them and like, great, like the only thing I have to do with this other human is charity work. And like maybe that charity work gets corrupted, but as long as it's helping some kids, that's a net benefit to the world, so I'm gonna keep doing it. And then all of a sudden, like a year later, 2 years later, 5 years later, that guy decides to go be a war criminal. And you're like, well, I was just trying to help the fucking kids. Like, what? You know what I mean? Like, it makes me so mad. In the meantime, you got Brad Marchand over there being a dick face. No one gives him shit for stuff. Why don't we ask him what his politics are? He was like butthurt that he couldn't go to the Olympics, which, I mean, I kind of get that to some degree, but like you saw how China treated those athletes. Like the NHL did them a huge favor by not letting them go because like those athletes got treated like shit. And like, why? I don't get why people are so like Olympics, because it just like all I see with the Olympics is just the waste. They build these facilities. they commit like human trafficking, human rights violations all over the place. They displace people. People die on these like shoddy construction jobs that are built shittily for like people are stealing money every which way. Like build this is the thing. This is the thing I don't understand the most. Why does the Olympics have to happen in one place? It's an international competition. You have a dozen plus events for each, the summer, winter. Why can't they all be at different places? Like, sure, there are some athletes that cross over, like, so having all the gymnastics in one place, having all the track and field in one place, that makes sense. But it's like, why does the hockey have to be the same place to do the bobsled? Like, why can't you just build, like one thing on each continent? Like, okay, the hockey in North America is in Toronto, and the bobsled is in Utah, and like that. And then you think about like in Europe, it's like, okay, in Finland, this is where the hockey is, and then in Sweden, we put the bobsled. In Germany, this, like I don't understand why it can't just be. And then it shifts each continent. It's like, okay, so the Olympics are here in America this year. They're going to be in LA. They're going to be in Florida. They're going to be in New York. Great. And then they can use those facilities year round. So when I just see the Olympics, I'm like, it's just a waste, and then I don't get why people are so about that life. Like, I don't know. And then, you have like these other sporting competitions like the World Cup and FIFA and stuff. And you're like, well, that's arguably better, I have a lot of good ideas. I think I'm going to run. I don't, like I'm on the fence about it, but like I could probably run for politics just on the messaging that A, I'm an idiot and I don't know anything, but B, there are things that are demonstrably wasteful that we could stop wasting money on. And it's like, that should be like a Republican talking point, kind of. So I guess, I don't know if that's being a Republican, but it's like the Republicans are about saving money through optics, and it's not actually about saving money. It's just about lowering tax rates for like a select group of people, and then the Democrats just seem like they want to help people, but they don't care enough. Like, it's like, if this works, it'd be great. That's kind of how I see the political parties of like, these people just want to gut the country so that some people don't have to pay as much taxes, and these people really wish things were better, but don't really care enough to actually make that effort to make that happen. So just everyone sucks is kind of the takeaway for me. So I don't know if my thought process of like, okay, there's homeless people in the world, they cost X, Y, and Z to, like when crimes were committed through them, whether that be things they just have to do to survive. It's like, okay, ambulance care, that kind of stuff. Like, it's cheaper. Like, there's so many studies that prove this. It's cheaper to just give them a house. And it's like, why can't we? And I get that. I've been to the homeless shelter here in town, and it's like one of the rougher ones because it's like the one that takes anybody. Like, a lot of homeless shelters won't take you if you're drunk or if you're using. And I don't, like, there's a lot of stipulations that would get you kicked out. And so there's one that I've done volunteer stuff at. It's like they take anybody. They're like, if you're drunk, like, we know you're drunk because like your life is in shambles and you have problems. Come when we will do what we can to get you on your feet. But that place is packed, and that's not a fun environment to be in because it's like, if you had mental issues, there is no way that environment is helping. Because it's just like, it's so crowded, and it's all those other people have mental issues and fights happen. You just think about like what that does to your brain, as far as even if you're not involved with if you stick to yourself and just you see fights happening daily, like that can't be good for you. And so it's like, okay, those people, that homeless shelter does a lot with not that much money. Like, I think it was like $30 million to build that thing, and it's big, and it houses like 500-600 people. And it's like, for $30 million, that's it? It's like, fuck, like if we could chunk off $1 million a year, which I know you're spending that just in police and ambulance care for these people probably, and like you can start to fix the problem, that's kind of what I think about that. And then also, we have here in Omaha, we have like a problem with the roads not being good. And the problem is like we're in Nebraska and there's like infinite space to just go. And so I don't know why we're not. The further out you go, the more roads have to get built. And so we're in a point where every time they build a new neighborhood, the roads to get to that neighborhood are already tax negative. Like the tax generated from that suburb doesn't cover the roads, let alone all the services that need to go to it. So it's like, well, why don't you incentivize people to not build out, to charge them more money? Like, I don't know how you do that, but there's got to be vehicles to do that, to have tax incentives to build up instead of out, and to have tax disincentives to build out, and be like, okay, well, you could build your neighborhood out there, but we're going to charge you, like anybody that lives there has a fucking 10% living too fucking far away tax. And then add toll roads, you know, for the people that are like, we'll just live outside of town. You're like, great, here's a fuck toll road, dickhead. Fuck you. It's $2. You want to drive on my road? $2 every day, $700 a year. Move back into town, fuckface. Boom, politicianed. And I would say that to people. Like, that's the other problem with politicians is like, they're so fake. And like, I know you're not listening to me. Just tell me that you don't give a shit what I have to say so that I can stop wasting my time with you. Like, just the whole like, aren't you sweet? I'm like, fuck you. I'm angry. Just don't listen to placate me because I know you're not listening. You're doing a terrible job of it. Just save both of us some time and just be like, I'm not doing that. You know, like it's rude as fuck. And I'm like, that's politics needs to be rude. You know, I don't know. Don't get me started. So I'm editing photos. And I'm doing pretty good. I have 3,000 to edit. I'm at 2,226. And I got lights. They're here. So I'm going to make an ASMR video with my new lights later. And then I've got a kettlebell, maybe. So I'm on Facebook Marketplace. And there's a person who has an 88-pound kettlebell. And they're selling it. They want $175 for it, but that's more than it is new. Of course, if you factor in shipping, it's like $213. So I'm trying to see if they'll sell it to me for $150. And he just messaged me saying he got another offer, and I was like, "Is your offer more than $150? Because if it is, then you should take it because that's the number I'm willing to pay. Because it's like it's not in bad condition, but it is kind of scuffed up a little bit. How can I see it? I can't show it to you. But Canada Justin Trudeau, look up his video title, Justin Trudeau. Well, boxed water is better though, isn't it? Because it doesn't take as much space to ship or something? I don't know. Like people like Trudeau a lot because I'm in America, so obviously I don't know Canadian politics that well. It seemed like he was well liked up until recently, and now people are angry at him. But I don't understand why, because the only reason I've seen was that like their COVID protocols were like maybe a little heavy-handed. But I'm like, I don't know if that's such a bad thing. Like here in Nebraska, we didn't have, our politicians were like, no COVID protocols. And then like we had to have like the public health people would be like, no, we're overstepping our boundaries to like tell you to wear fucking masks. And people were like, we're not gonna do it because we're in America. And it's like, okay. And so what ended up happening was a lot of people got really sick and a lot of people died. And a lot of people that work at our world-renowned hospital quit. And you're like, okay, well, that'll happen. So I don't know what the Trudeau story is though. You know, I guess I'll have to go look into that. Yeah, so this are photos from this place. There's this place in Omaha called Do Space, which is super cool. It's like a technology library. So like they have 3D printers. Yeah, restrictions here have been terrible. Yeah, I hear that like they weren't even letting people play hockey, which is like I go back and forth on how, because like when COVID first started, That's when I found out I had diabetes, and then I had my toe amputated, and so I like had to be off my feet for a long time. Well, not a long time. It was a couple weeks, but I definitely couldn't play hockey for like 3 months or something like that. And then COVID shut down hockey, and then hockey kind of came back, and it was I was able to play the last couple games, and then over that summer, the hockey was kind of like wear a mask to get into the rink, and then after that we don't care. And then what ended up happening was there was a hockey tournament, and everybody got COVID. Like everybody. Like it was. I think there was like 12 teams, and of the 12 teams, 12 players. So what's that? Like 150 people. Of the 150 people, like 130 of them had COVID. Like the only people that didn't get COVID were like the goalies. And so it's like when I saw that, I was like, oh, I guess I'm not playing hockey this next year. And so I took a year off, and then the numbers kind of went up, down, and I was like, I can't not play hockey. It's the only thing I do for fun. And it like, I could tell how my health changed because like with diabetes, I've been trying to be better about like everything, and it's a struggle because I like eating food, which is why I have diabetes. And so having hockey like gave me something to like train for, and so it was a lot easier. And so taking the year off is kind of like, what's the fucking point of eating right, and what's the fucking point of working out? Like I still kind of went through the motions, but like obviously it was not anywhere near as effective. I gained back a lot of weight, and just generally had a bad time. And so I signed up again this year and was like, fuck it. And then of course I got COVID. I don't think it was from hockey. And then my COVID was very mild. It was like basically nothing. But I had been vaccinated, so who knows how much or how little that helped. Because supposedly if you have diabetes, COVID's not good for you. But it was not that bad for me. I think it's a thing where, shout out to Zevia. I'm not drinking Zevia right now, because I'm out of Zevia. I drank my last one last night. I have a Rowdy right now. It's an energy drink. It's moderately healthy because it's like green tea, caffeine, and keto friendly, which means it should be diabetes friendly. But it does have, what's the one it has in it? Erythritol is not great, but it's okay for your blood sugar. It has allulose, which is really good. That's the first sweetener. Citric acid, natural. Oh, it's got monk fruit and stevia, but it has another one, I thought. Oh, this one actually might be good. I don't see sucralose on this one. That's the problem with this brand, is that they have several different ones that have like different ingredients. So I guess strawberry lemonade is the one to get. Dude, I've been pimping out Zevia in those ASMR videos for like a fucking year, and they have not noticed. Like, how dare they? I get like 50 views a day. They're missing out on a real opportunity here, that's for sure. But why, if I keep doing this for another 5 years, maybe my views will be up to 200 plays per video. I've been trying to get better about, because I'm having a time with the ASMR stuff of like, I kind of just want to talk about whatever I want to talk about, and then have that be like a thing where I could just like unwind my brain, versus when to try to like actually build value for people and try to like make something that people, I mean, like, I don't want to say like people want to watch, but like to have more of an audience. So like the whole point is like A, to like help my brain, but then B, like to make money would be great, but then C, obviously to like make something that helps people fall asleep, which was the whole point of starting an ASMR channel and a white noise channel. Was to, because I was at the time having terrible time sleeping, and so I was like, I started the white noise channel first, and this was like 2014, and I was like having the worst time sleeping, and I was like, white noise on YouTube, and like all the videos were just shitty, and I was like, I could do better than that. And then my girlfriend finally at the time was like, fuck, do it then, fuckface. I'm like, okay, I'm gonsta, and then I did, and it worked out really well. And then she was like, oh, you should make ASMR videos too. I'm like, what the fuck is that? So then that started the whole path. And then we made a bunch of videos together, and then I kind of did my own thing, and then I like stopped. That's the thing with ASMR is like, oh, that channel's been going for 5 years. And then someone's like, how many times did you take breaks for like 6 months where you didn't make a single video? Like, several. So it's like, I'm not bummed by where I'm at, but I do wish it was further down the path to the point where, I mean, it makes like $20 a month, which is cool, but the White Noise channel makes like $400 a month. So it's like, I make daily videos for the ASMR basically, and then I make like once a month videos for the White Noise. And so from like an ROI perspective, I should be making daily videos for the White Noise channel, but at the same time, from a mental health perspective, the ASMR thing helps me a lot. So I think it's worth doing. And I'm gonna keep doing it because it makes me feel good. And then I want to get this channel going. This is my next thing. Super good regardless. That's what people tell me it's good. And I think it's one of those things where it's like, okay, if it's good, then why isn't it getting more views? And then you also have to like dissociate from that, because it's like if you focus all on views, because it's so fickle, there's so many things that you just can't control. I just don't know. I don't know. It's like one of those things. Like, at what point do you throw in the towel and be like, I should do something else? Like, this isn't resonating with enough people. And it's like, well, maybe it just hasn't found its audience yet. And you're like, well, how long will that take? And then it's like, well, do you enjoy doing it? And you're like, okay. So then you just end up in these like cycles, And it's like, I enjoy doing it, so I'm gonna keep doing it. But like, if I get busy, then it's like the first thing that gets kind of left off, even though it probably shouldn't, because it's mental health. I think more than anything, if I just look at it that way, like, this helps your brain so much. Like, you feel so much better after you do this. And so that's why I'm streaming on this channel, partly to build watch time, because you need to build like 4,000 hours of watch time. But then also just because I like talking to cameras. So maybe I should start a podcast too. My friend Nick and our other friend Django, they're like, we should make a podcast. And it's like, yeah, but like what? I feel like it needs, this is just like people talking. And I'm like, I don't know what it would be about. Like camera stuff, I guess, because we all do camera stuff. We all work in like marketing. I feel like that's the problem with podcasts, is that so many of them are just like, here's the thing, is that like with the ASMR stuff, I'm just rambling. I'm just whatever comes to mind. I'm like, this is what I'm going. I could talk. I could just go. And so in theory, I could have a podcast where I just fucking ramble, and people seem to like that. But when I want to watch something like that, I can't watch people just rambling and talking. I need to watch think of like, I don't really like Joe Rogan, but like we'll use him as an example, is like, I can't watch Joe Rogan's podcast, but I can watch the highlight clip where it's like, here's 5 minutes where the guy that went on Joe Rogan talks about this thing. And, there's a couple podcasts I follow like that, like Jocko Willink is really good, but like his podcasts are like 3 hours long. And I'm like, man, I don't have time to listen to you for 3 hours. Like, I got stuff to do. Like, I can't focus, and I'm gonna miss all this good shit. Like, just cut out the parts that are good. Because like when I try to watch podcasts, the first like 20 minutes are all just like bullshit that I don't care about. And I might care about if I like watch the podcast regularly and I like had any emotional investment with the human that was hosting it, but I don't as like a first timer. So I feel like the thing with podcasts is it probably needs to have that raw, like, we're doing it. And I think if you're doing that, it has to be live. So that way people can like chat with you and you can have a back and forth, and then they feel like active participants. And then from that, you heavily edit that down. So you do like a 3-minute recording time where you talk, you have questions, you have people in the chat, and you can back and forth with them. Then you cut that down to an hour of like, we're cutting out all the bullshit, the fluff, where we tell stories about our fucking dog, because that wasn't the topic, but we love our dog and he's here and we're going to bring him up on the camera. And then after that, you have to do these nuggets that are like 30 seconds to 5 minutes of like, this is the wisdom, and it depends on where you're distributing it. So you think about like if it's going on Instagram, it should be less than a minute, you know, because you don't want to get into that watch, you know, Instagram watch, because then that makes people have to click on something else. They're not going to do that. So you want, you know, 30 to 59 seconds, I think is actually like the limit. And then if it's on Facebook, it probably should be less than 2 minutes. And then if it's on YouTube, it should be less than 5 minutes. And I think you do that, you record once a week, and then you have from that one big podcast, the next day comes the hour, and going forward for the next month, you kind of sprinkle in these little clips, and you have to have all this content, and that's how you build a podcast. And when I spell it out like that, it's like, holy shit, that's so much fucking work. Like, to do it right, you know? And then also, like, you also have to, like, research the person you're talking to and what you're going to talk about. And, you know? So, it's like, to do a podcast, I think it's the problem I have is it's not perfectionism, it's just, like, I want to do stuff good. You know, like it could be not perfect, but it should still be good. And then it's like, if I'm not willing to put in the effort to make a good thing, then why am I doing it at all? You know, that's kind of how I feel about that. Oh boy, I have been rambling for 81 minutes, and my voice is starting to get strained. How do streamers do this all day? Do they? I don't really watch any streamers. Do they go super long? Do they go for like hours at a time? I should do some research. Oh. Do they drink a lot of tea? Do they talk less than I talk? Oh, look at that. There comes the spam bots. 4 red. I don't know what that is, but we're reporting it. 4. I don't know. Spam, sure. Click. Boom. Done it. Okay. Bum, 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 bum. Yes. Uh-oh. I hit that gap where I like don't have anything to talk about anymore. Did this guy message me back yet? Nope. He saw my message. Respond to my message. That's okay. All right. Well, this has been a fun experiment. I'm going to log off. Thank you to those that watched and those that are watching in the future. If you get this far, you have seen the genesis of me streaming. Okay, I'm going to log off. Thanks for watching. See you next time. Click.